I saw Sarah's journal open. Its words broke everything. I took photos, packed, and left. 2 days later, she stormed our empty apartment, yelling my name, unaware her lies were already exposed. My name's Lucas, and I'm 32 now, but this all went down a couple years ago when life felt like it was on cruise control. I'm the kind of guy who thrives on routine. Black coffee at 7 a.m., a tidy desk at my graphic design job, and weekends spent tweaking side projects or diving into a new game. Predictability was my jam, and I thought it kept me grounded. Maybe that's why I didn't spot the cracks forming, or maybe I just didn't want to. You know how you can stare at something so long you miss the obvious? Yeah, that was me. Sarah, my girlfriend back then, was 28 and a whirlwind of energy. We'd been together nearly 4 years, ever since she accidentally dumped a margarita on my shirt at a friend-ass barbecue and laughed it off like it was a comedy show. She was spontaneous, always pulling me into her chaos, like the time she got us to road trip to a random coastal town at midnight just for the vibes. I thought she was the spark to my steady flame, the chaos to my order. I loved her, man. Like head over heels, planning a future, loved her. We'd talk about moving in together for good, maybe even a ring someday. She made the mundane feel alive. We lived in this cozy 2-bedroom apartment downtown. Not fancy, but it was ours. I covered most of the rent since my design job paid well. Solid salary, benefits, the whole deal. Sarah did freelance social media work, so her cash flow was spotty. But I didn't mind picking up the slack. That's what you do when you're a team, right? She'd call me her rock and I'd grin thinking I was doing it right. We had our rituals. Friday movie nights. Her cooking these wild dishes that were either amazing or a pizza ordering disaster. Life felt good, normal. But there were these little things I brushed off. Her phone was always glued to her hand, screen tilted just out of view when she texted. Girls' nights that turned into full weekends, with stories that sounded a bit too polished. I told myself not to be paranoid. Trust is everything. Don't be that guy. Then came the weekend that flipped my world upside down. It was a Thursday night, and Sarah was packing for a wellness retreat with her friends. She was darting around, tossing clothes into a suitcase, spraying perfume, rambling about yoga and hot tubs. "Babe, it's gonna be so chill," she said, pecking my cheek. "You should try something like this. Shake up that boring routine." I laughed, helped her zip the bag, and waved as she left. "Text me when you're there," I called, planning a quiet weekend of work and maybe some Netflix. Normal stuff, right? Around 9 p.m., I went to our bedroom to grab my laptop charger. That's when I saw it. Her journal, this leather-bound book I'd gifted her for our 3rd anniversary, lying open on her side of the bed. Pages fluttering under the fan, her handwriting staring up at me. I froze. I'm not the type to snoop. Privacy's a big deal to me, but my name jumped out, scribbled next to Miguel, her ex, the guy she swore was just a college buddy, no big deal. "Don't worry about him, Lucas," she'd say with a laugh. My gut twisted like I'd swallowed a rock. I told myself to walk away, shut the journal, but something, instinct maybe, pulled me closer. I sat on the bed, heart hammering, and started reading. It wasn't just one page. It was months of entries, a whole damn novel in her neat, loopy script. "Lucas is so predictable," one line read. "Buried in his designs all weekend. Perfect time to slip out with M." My stomach churned. That retreat? A cover for a getaway with Miguel? The cocktail pics she texted me? Recycled from a trip they took last year? I pulled up my phone, did a reverse image search. Bam! Same bar, same drinks, same date from a year ago. It wasn't just cheating. It was a calculated plan, and I was the mark. I kept reading, each word like a punch. Sarah called me her stable phase, the guy with the steady job bankrolling her life, while Miguel, some flaky artist who couldn't hold a gig, got his shit together. Our apartment? Mostly my dime, just a convenient base for her. The real gut punch was the money. I'd been saving for a house, a modest place in the suburbs, our future. I'd shown her listings, got all excited, and she'd act thrilled, eyes sparkling. But in the journal, she called it a dull beige box. Said once I hit my 50K savings goal in a few months, she'd convince me to invest half, 25 grand, into a startup with Miguel, an event planning business. Lucas is such a provider, she wrote. He'll eat it up, think it's for us. Once the money's in, Em and I can bolt, get our own place, ditch the dead weight, foolproof. The journal didn't stop there. Sarah had written about my family too, and it cut deep. My sister Emily was battling a cancer scare, and Sarah had been so sweet, visiting, cooking meals, charming my mom. But in those pages, playing the doting girlfriend with Lucas's whiny sister, Mom eats it up. She mocked a necklace I'd given her, a custom piece with our initials carved into it. Said she stuffed it in a drawer and showed it to Miguel for laughs. Reading that, something in me shifted. Not anger, not yet. Just this cold, sharp clarity. All the late client meetings, the hushed phone calls, the vague answers about her day. They clicked into place like a horror movie reveal. I put the journal back exactly as I found it, hands steady despite my racing pulse, grabbed my phone and started snapping photos of every page from the last 8 months. Clear, high-res shots, dates visible. I uploaded them to a secure cloud folder, then copied them to an encrypted USB drive I use for work. Evidence like that? You don't mess around. I needed it airtight. Then I started packing. Not everything. Just what mattered. Clothes, my laptop, design gear, my grandpa's old watch, family photos, a few favorite books. Left all her stuff, the designer bags I'd bought for her birthday, the earrings, the couch we picked out together. Loaded my car with calm precision, like I was solving a puzzle. Took one last look at the apartment. It felt like a stage, all props for a life that was never real. I drove to my best friend Jake's place across town, showed up unannounced. He took one look at my face, the bags at my feet, and handed me a beer. "Talk when you're ready, man," he said. Didn't push. For 2 days, I ignored Sarah's texts, the sweet ones first. "Miss you, babe," with heart emojis, then recycled pics from her retreat. Then the worried ones. "You okay? Why so quiet?" By Sunday, she was pissed. Voicemail snapping, "Lucas, pick up already." I let them pile up, sipping coffee at Jake's, my mind spinning with what came next. Then, Sunday afternoon, a text from our neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, this sweet old lady who'd bring us cookies. "Lucas, some woman's banging on your door yelling your name. You all right?" I knew it was Sarah. She'd expected me to be there, waiting like a loyal dog. Finding half the place cleared out? That wasn't in her script. The calls went into overdrive, her friends, even her brother. I didn't answer, just sat there planning. This wasn't about yelling or crying. It was about dismantling her game, piece by careful piece. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative anymore. By Monday, she'd used her key and seen the apartment. My closet empty, my desk bare, my coffee mug gone. She called that evening, and I finally picked up. Time to set the first boundary. "Lucas, what the hell? Where are you? Half the stuff's gone. My blender's missing." Notice that? Her blender, the one I paid for with my last bonus. I kept my voice flat like we were discussing traffic. "I moved out, Sarah. We're done." She lost it. "Moved out? You can't just leave. We live here. You were supposed to pick me up from the train." The entitlement was unreal. Not what's wrong, but you screwed up my routine. I cut through it. "I read your journal." Dead silence. Then the defensiveness kicked in. "You went through my private stuff?" "That's a total violation, Lucas. I can't believe you'd do that." I fired back. "And I can't believe you planned to scam me out of 25 grand and run off with Miguel. Guess we're both shocked." More silence. Then the gaslighting started. "You're twisting it. It's just venting, a way to process stuff. Miguel's just a friend helping with my business. You're being paranoid." I didn't bite. "I've got photos of every page, Sarah, every single word." That's when her mom jumped in. Phone was on speaker, sneaky move. Mrs. Valdez with that patronizing tone that always set my teeth on edge. Lucas, this is so immature. Whatever's in that journal, you need to act like a man and talk it out. Come home. I wasn't falling for it. Nothing to talk about, I said. Then I dropped the hammer. Called the landlord today. Gave my 30-day notice to end the lease. You're on it too, so either prove you can cover the rent alone or give notice yourself. Up to you. She screamed back on the line. You can't do that. I can't afford this place on my own. That's your problem now, I said, cool as ice. What about my stuff? She growled. Rent's paid through the month. I still have access. Yesterday, while you were at the retreat, I hired movers. Your things are packed in a 10x10 storage unit. Climate-controlled, nice place. The line went quiet, like Sarah's brain was scrambling to catch up. You did what? She finally sputtered. I'm sending you the storage address and key code, I said, voice steady. Soon as you pay your share of the last 4 months' rent. The next day, the smear campaign kicked off. Sarah posted cryptic Instagram stories about breaking free from toxic energy, with Miguel dropping supportive comments and heart emojis. It stung, I won't lie. Part of me wanted to fire back, post the journal pages online, and let the world see her for who she was. But that's not how you win. You don't scream in a chess game, you move the pieces. And I was playing for keeps. The storage drama came next, right on cue. Sarah and her mom showed up at the facility, making a scene, demanding access. The manager, Tony, called me while they were still there. I could hear Mrs. Valdez in the background yelling about stolen property. I kept it calm, explained to Tony. Units in my name, paid with my card. It's collateral for unpaid debts from our lease. She gets access when she pays or brings a court order. Tony, who deals with craziness daily, didn't blink. Told them straight, this is a civil matter. No access without Lucas's sign-off or a judge. Keep it up and I'll ask you to leave. They stormed out, but not before Sarah shouted about getting a lawyer. Sure enough, a few days later, a fancy letter arrived from some attorney her dad hired, full of legal jargon, unlawful detention, emotional distress, demanding her stuff back plus $7,000 in damages, or they'd see me in court. It was a scare tactic, pure and simple. They thought I'd cave, hand over her things, maybe even apologize. But that letter? It was the push I needed to move to phase 2. This wasn't about the furniture or the Instagram shade. It was about the $25,000 scam at the heart of it all. In her journal, Sarah had bragged about their investor pitch to a guy named Reginald Hayes, a retired exec with deep pockets and a reputation for hating liars. He was their golden ticket, the one they planned to con with my savings. I'd sent a polite email to his firm first, laying out the fraud angle without proof. Got a 2-line thanks but no from an assistant. They probably laughed, thinking the jealous ex struck out. But I'd planned for that. Gatekeepers filter out noise, so I went straight to the source. I printed high-quality copies of the journal pages, loaded them onto an encrypted USB drive, and tucked it into a padded envelope with a letter. Dear Mr. Hayes, it read, regarding my prior email, I understand your skepticism without evidence. Enclosed are documented proofs of fraudulent intent in the proposal from Sarah Valdez and Miguel Torres. I trust your discretion. This is my final contact. Sincerely, Lucas Reed. No office address this time. I paid for a premium courier service to hand-deliver it to Hayes' ES home, address pulled from public property records. Cost a chunk, but it was critical. Delivery confirmation came back with his signature. I sat back and waited, knowing a guy like Hayes doesn't ignore a package like that. Meanwhile, Sarah kept up the pressure. More calls, more texts from her friends, even one from her cousin begging me to work it out. I stayed radio silent, letting her stew. She'd built this house of cards, and I was about to pull the foundation. Around this time, I started settling into Jake's place. But it wasn't just crashing on a couch. I was rebuilding, piece by piece. Got my work set up in his spare room, kept grinding on my design projects. My sister Emily was doing better. Chemo was rough, but she was fighting, and I spent evenings with her and Mom just being there. It felt grounding, real. Meanwhile, Sarah's world was starting to wobble, and she didn't even know how bad it was about to get. The package I sent to Reginald Hayes was like a grenade with the pin pulled, and when it went off, it obliterated Sarah and Miguel's carefully crafted plans. 2 weeks after the courier dropped that USB drive at Hayes's doorstep, the fallout began to ripple. My buddy Noah, who works in finance and always seems to hear the good gossip, hit me up one evening with a bombshell. "Lucas, you didn't tell me you were playing chess with these people," he said, half laughing. Apparently, Hayes didn't just pull his investment from their event planning startup. He'd gone full scorched earth, but in that quiet, classy way only rich guys can pull off. No public drama, just a discreet word to his network. Due diligence uncovered significant ethical and financial irregularities with Sarah Valdez and Miguel Torres. They're a risk not worth touching. In the high-stakes world of venture capital, that's a death sentence. Once a guy like Hayes, known for his nose for BS and obsession with integrity, puts you on blast, you're done. No investor with half a brain would touch them now. Noah said the story was making rounds in hushed tones at industry mixers. Sarah and Miguel's pitch had been polished, all charm and big promises, but Hayes's word carried weight. Their dream of a boutique empire was dead before it even started. And without that golden carrot dangling, the promise of my $25K and Hayes' millions, Miguel turned on Sarah faster than you can say, broke. Noah heard through a mutual friend that Miguel had called her sloppy and careless, blaming her for botching the investor pitch. He packed his bags and bailed, leaving her to wade through the wreckage alone. I didn't feel a shred of pity. Not after reading her journal, where she'd laid out their scheme to use me as a stepping stone, mocking my family and my dreams along the way. The apartment situation was the next domino to fall, and it hit hard. With my name off the lease and the landlord, a no-nonsense guy named Mr. Patel, holding firm, Sarah was stuck. She couldn't cover the rent solo. Her freelance gigs barely paid for her coffee runs. An eviction notice landed at her door, and that's when her parents' protective bubble finally popped. No more "our Sarah's just finding her way" excuses. This was a crisis, legal, financial, and logistical. I got a glimpse of the chaos through Mrs. Jenkins, our old neighbor, who texted me updates like a play-by-play. "She's been in and out, Lucas, hauling bags, crying on the phone. Looks like she's trying to move stuff herself." I could picture Sarah, that vibrant energy replaced by panic, scrambling to salvage what she could. Meanwhile, Sarah kept up the pressure on me. The calls didn't stop. Her friends, even her cousin Maria leaving voicemails begging me to talk it out for her sake. Then came the lawyer letter, all pomp and intimidation on embossed letterhead. Her dad had hired some hotshot attorney who threw around terms like unlawful detention of property and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They demanded I return her belongings immediately and cough up $7K for damages, or they'd drag me to court. It was a bluff, plain and simple, designed to make me panic and cave. But I'd been ready for this. That journal was my shield, and those photos were my sword. I forwarded the letter to a lawyer friend, who laughed and said, "This is all bark, no bite. They've got nothing unless they want to air their dirty laundry in court." That gave me the confidence to stay the course. A few weeks later, a cashier's check arrived at my new address. Exact amount, $4,256.32, sent from her parents' house. No note, no apologies, just cold cash in an envelope. I deposited it, waited for it to clear, then made the trek to the storage unit. I'd hired a top-notch place, climate-controlled, secure, the kind you'd trust with heirlooms. I packed the key and access code into a plain envelope and mailed it to her parents' address. No letter, no gloating, just business. It felt like snipping the last thread tying me to her. Then came the call that sealed it, from Sarah's dad, Mr. Valdez. I braced for a fight, expecting him to throw accusations or threats. but his voice was heavy, like a man who'd aged a decade in a month. "Lucas, hiring that lawyer was a dumb move, spur of the moment," he said. "Sarah's falling apart and we're out thousands cleaning up her mess, debts, the eviction, all of it. I need to know straight up, was any of it real?" I didn't rub it in. I just told him the truth. The journal, the 25K scam, the way she mocked my sister's illness to play the saint. "All I did," I said, "was refuse to be their mark. Everything that's happened since, that's the weight of their choices coming down." He sighed, a sound so tired it almost hurt to hear. "She burned the journal, swore you made it all up, but a guy doesn't hire movers and couriers over a misunderstanding. Thanks for being honest." The line went dead. I saw Sarah once after that, about a month later, outside a coffee shop downtown. She was passing by the window, head down, scrolling her phone. The girl who used to light up rooms looked diminished, shoulders slumped, eyes tired, like the world had drained her spark. Our gazes didn't meet, and I didn't want them to. I felt a flicker, not pity exactly, but a quiet recognition of a life I'd been part of, a life that was never real. I sipped my coffee, paid the bill, and walked out into the crisp air, leaving that chapter behind. Meanwhile, I was piecing my life back together, stronger than before. I'd moved out of Jake's into a small rental, a temporary spot while I worked on the house purchase. My design job was keeping me busy, and I poured myself into it, tweaking my portfolio late into the night. My sister Emily was doing better. Chemo was brutal, but her latest scans were promising. I spent evenings with her and Mom, just talking, laughing about old memories, steering clear of the Sarah saga. It felt like coming home to myself, like I was rediscovering what mattered. But I knew Sarah's story wasn't over. She'd built her world on lies, and the cracks were only getting wider. Life has a way of surprising you. You think you're living one story, then it rips apart at the seams and you're left standing in the rubble, forced to write a new one. For me, that new story started taking shape a few months after Sarah's world imploded. I closed on that dull beige box I'd been saving for. A modest house in the suburbs, nothing flashy, but every inch of it mine. I moved in with just the essentials: my books, my design gear, family photos, and my grandpa's old watch on a shelf by the door. No trace of Sarah, no lingering ghosts of that fake life we'd built. The place felt like a sanctuary, a space where I could finally breathe. Unpacking was cathartic. I'd kept busy, throwing myself into work to keep the past at bay. That stupid design portfolio Sarah had mocked in her journal? It paid off big. My boss called me in one day, said my latest project, a branding campaign for a local startup, had caught the eye of some higher-ups. They offered me a senior designer role, complete with a hefty raise and more creative control. It wasn't just the money, it was the validation that my steady, predictable grind had value. I celebrated with Jake and a few buddies over beers, laughing louder than I had in months. It felt like I was waking up from a long, bad dream. Family became my anchor. My sister Emily's health was improving, her scans were clear, and she was starting to look like herself again, cracking jokes and bossing me around like old times. Mom, who'd always been my rock, pulled me aside one night after dinner. "That girl's smile never reached her eyes, Lucas," she said, squeezing my hand. "I saw it from the start, but you were happy, so I kept quiet. Mothers know." I hugged her tight, grateful for her quiet wisdom. Those evenings with them, playing cards, watching old movies, grounded me in a way Sarah's chaos never could. It was real, unpolished, and worth more than any staged adventure. One day, while unpacking the last of my boxes, I found that necklace, the one with our initials I'd given Sarah, the one she'd hidden and mocked. I held it, the weight of it heavy with old promises. For a second, I considered tossing it in the trash, letting it vanish like the life it represented. Instead, I took it to a jeweler friend, had the pendant melted down and reshaped into something new. a simple silver square engraved with "Truth sets you free." I hung it by the front door, right where I'd see it every day. It wasn't just decor. It was a reminder. My life, with its routines and quiet moments, was honest. After 4 years tangled in a polished lie, honest felt like a lifeline. I saw Sarah one last time months later at a park near my new place. I was grabbing coffee with Jake, sitting outside, when I spotted her on a bench across the way. She looked smaller somehow, huddled in a faded jacket, staring at her phone, her face pinched with exhaustion. The vibrant, carefree girl who'd once convinced me to chase sunsets was gone, replaced by someone the world had worn down. Her shoulders were slumped, her eyes scanning the screen like it held answers she couldn't find. Our gazes didn't meet, and I didn't want them to. I felt a pang. Not regret, not pity, but a quiet acknowledgement of a chapter that was never what it seemed. I turned back to Jake, cracked a joke, and let the moment pass like a cloud. Life kept moving. I started hosting game nights at the house, filling it with friends' laughter and the clink of beer bottles. Emily and I took Mom on a weekend trip to the coast, the first time we'd done something like that in years. The house, my boring box, became a home. Plants on the windowsill, my designs framed on the walls, a coffee maker that brewed the perfect black cup every morning. I even picked up a new hobby, woodworking, building a bookshelf with my own hands. It was slow, messy work, but every cut and sanded edge felt like proof I could build something real. The moral of it all hit me one night, staring at that pendant by the door. People who treat you like a stepping stone don't expect the ground to shift beneath them. They weave their plans with your trust, thinking you'll stay steady, predictable, blind. But truth? It's a wrecking ball. It smashes the lies and clears the way for something solid. Sarah and Miguel thought they could climb over me to their big win, but they didn't count on me seeing the game for what it was. And the evidence, those journal photos backed up twice over, was my ace. Always protect your truth, because when the house of cards falls, it's the only thing left standing.